What's up, everybody? It's Henry with Conoly Coaster Designs, and I'm going to be coming at you here with a very jam-packed Dorney Park Iron Menace 2024 update. But before we get into that, I just want to take a second to, I guess, address something. I know it's been over a month since I had a video out, and there's a few reasons behind this. And I just want to thank everybody that's been reaching out to the channel or to me on Twitter or in the Discord asking when the next video is coming. It means a ton to me that you guys like my content so much that you were eager to see when this was going to be coming out. Unfortunately, life got in the way. The past month has been jam-packed with everything from work to spending time with my family, and, you know, everything that gets in the way kind of prevented me from having the time to sit down at night and record the videos. Luckily, here I am. I'm recording a video, and thanks to Ibby's kindness, and you can find them at Ibby Coaster on Twitter and YouTube, I have a whole slew of photos from not only outside the construction fences, but inside the construction fences, being that they were able to get behind-the-scenes tours, and gave me permission to use their photos. So every photo you're going to see up in this update, except for the last two photos in this update, are from Ibby Coaster. The last two photos, they come from Dorney Park. So before we get going too crazy on this, let's discuss what this is going to encompass. This is going to cover everything from pretty much late September all the way up until now. And then we are going to discuss what's going to happen moving forward, because everyone knows this Sunday, October 29th, is the last operating day of Dorney Park's year, which means getting construction updates to you is going to be tough. But we have a plan, and we want to work into that. But let's move into the update and the beginning part of it here. So, what we're going to be looking at here is going to be early October, or early September. I'm going to back that sentence up here, sorry. It's going to be late September. This is going to be the earliest photos that I have for this update. As you can see in this, the walls have been put up around the Ritas there. And I know that some people that are watching this may not have been to Dorney Park previously. Maybe they don't know what's in this area. So what you're looking at in front of you is Possessed, which is one of Dorney Park's relocated roller coasters. Near Possessed was always a Rita's, and that Rita's has stood there for years. Well, to make room for Iron Menace and this unbelievable ride, Rita's is going away. So in these photos, you can see some of the last photos of Rita's before Rita's was torn down. At this point, they had already moved the construction wall to encompass Rita's and encompass the planters, which in my previous videos I have talked about. Those planters are going to be removed. They are going to be demolished because there are footers that have to go into those areas. And also, that's within the clearance envelope of the roller coaster itself. So, looking down here, you can see where that Iron Menace wall was, and that was our first glimpse at the theming that potentially is going to come to this attraction. Now you can see that they have at this point closed the construction off completely, and this is what was going on behind the scenes at this point was site grading, site clearing, preparation for footers, and you'll see in some of these photos, those footers, I would say probably it seems like 80% of the footers, based upon looking at the site plans versus the photos that are available, it seems like about 80% of the footers are in place. It looks like the foundations and the preparations for all the rest of the footers are well in progress, which means probably, I would imagine, by the beginning of November, all those footers will be in place. And based upon some information I was able to gain yesterday, that would make sense, being what is planning to happen within the first week of November, which we will get to. So yes, site clearing is done, for the most part. There's probably little things here and there that have been finished, but this is finishing that step in the construction sequence. In this photo, you're able to see some steel arriving for Iron Menace. I believe these were some I-beam pieces, some catwalk pieces, and stuff like that that had arrived, but they were the first pieces of steel that arrived on site for Iron Menace and for the construction of this brand new roller coaster. And this is a general look over the wall, kind of towards the parking lot. You can see just how much earth they are moving. They have moved a mess of earth for this ride. It's required a lot of site grading. They had to excavate a lot of dirt to get down to Stinger's old footers. And we'll discuss this when we get to some of the more close-up photos. For anybody that doesn't understand, the piece of the footer that you see above ground, that is only a portion of the actual footer. The footers for these roller coasters, they go deep underground, and they are very sizable pieces of concrete. They are extremely large, they are extremely heavy, and that is so that it's able to take the weight of the ride and distribute that across the ground, and we don't have issues, hopefully, with the ride structure, and no stresses put onto the ride structure that we don't want to see. Fury 325, I'm thinking of you. So what you'll see in some photos, you'll see what looks to be older concrete with the new concrete footer on top of it. That will be some of Stinger's old footers that were subterranean, underground footers with brand new footers put in place for this ride. Now, locations of these footers, they are determined by those marking guides that I've shown previously, the nails that are distributed throughout certain concrete walkways in the park. That's how they are able to laser range find and identify exactly where footers had to go. And the height of those is also based off of that benchmark height that we saw way in the beginning of the season in Stinger's former mechanical building. And we got more views across the site. This is prior to them beginning the work on the outside of the main park fences, where the ride is going to essentially cause the park to extend the park perimeters, per se. It's not like they're expanding into perimeters that they didn't have before. It's land they owned before. They're now just expanding the park a little bit to fit this ride in properly. And here you can see out on the main road, looking into the construction site. Of course, at this point, they had multiple pieces of excavation equipment working to dig up all the various foundations for the station, for the transfer track, for the maintenance building, everything that is going to be involved in this ride. And then finally, Monster had begun to be taken down. This ride, I'm going to speculate on this, maybe being rethemed. Some information I'll have later in this video, which I was able to gain yesterday thanks to a viewer. There will be other rides receiving a retheme. The fact that they're taking Monster apart this early in the season at that point, I'm wondering if it's going to receive a retheme. Now, above my head here is a site overview. This is what the site should look like if you were looking at it from a top-down angle without the track. This is going to be all your footers, your markings. Let me orient myself. Above my finger here, the markings for the station building. Out here, we're going to get past the park perimeter. Up here, we're going to get towards Possessed. And so this is a general site overview. The construction plans that we had found back in January, and by we, I mean all of us enthusiasts, these have a match line, and you can line these up and get a really good idea of what we're looking at. And looking at this ride's layout currently, we're going to zoom in on here and kind of discuss some of the things that are happening as we speak. So, all the footers that are pretty much contained within the I guess, the boundaries set by Zephyr. All those footers are in place. All those footers have been poured, and I believe, based upon all the photos I've seen, all of the casings have been pulled off of them. Now, the two buildings that are being removed are still standing. So, there are the two outdoor pavilions that were turned into storage areas. Those have not been demolished yet. Now, obviously, this week probably could see them demolished, so that way they can begin working on the queue line for this ride. The queue line for this ride is going to be a big queue line. I've been talking about this since I first started doing these videos, and I suspect that Dorney thinks that this ride is going to be that big of a hit that they need this queue line. And I don't blame them for thinking this. This ride is going to be a massive hit. It's going to be visible from pretty much every direction that you come towards this park. And if you're flying over the park, that beautiful orange is going to stand out against the backdrop of the green and the luscious nature of this park. So, what we're looking at is what has to be done still based upon all the photos I've seen. Pretty much, if you're looking at this picture right now, anything that's outside the border of Zephyr is in progress and still needs to be completed. Again, I suspect that most of this will be done within, I'd say, the next week to 2 weeks. Because based upon, again, information given to us yesterday, there are some major events that will be beginning to happen. So, we're going to move on to the next side. This is going to be looking at Possessed, the former Rita's area. Based upon everything that I have available to me, photo-wise and everything, all of the footers in this area, except for the ones that are in the former Rita's area, the former garden area there, and then the two external footers that are going to be on the outside of that planter, those ones have not been poured. But everything else inside where Stinger was, they have been poured. The casings have been pulled off of them. They are ready to receive supports and track, which is a very exciting milestone for this coaster, being that I would say about 80%, if not more, of the footers are ready to receive supports and therefore track. So we're getting there. So we're going to move into some more views around the site. Now, these are views that were provided to me by Ibby. Ibby had permission from Dorney Park, and I believe they were with Ryan from Dorney Park for these. These photos were taken within the construction area with permission from the park. Please do not go in there unless you have permission from the park and you are with the representatives of the park or however they handle it. I just don't want to see anybody get trespassed off the park and miss the opportunity to ride this unbelievable ride when it opens. These photos are obviously later on in the construction, or later on in the month. And there have been massive modifications to this whole area. You can see that one of the pavilion structures is gone. You can see they have footers poured. And what you're looking at here is those sub-footers, I guess would be the best way to say it. If anybody knows what the actual term for those is, please tell me. So that way I can correct myself in future videos. But what you are seeing here is some of the sub-footers for the incline loop. And they are large, square, concrete footers that are going to be below ground. The time that they spend in the construction period is pretty much the only time the only amount of daylight they actually see. After that, they're buried, they're gone, and they're forgotten about, unless something major happens, which, again, probably will not happen with this coaster, because Bollinger and Mabillard, they take everything that they learned from previous coasters, and they put it into their newest products. What you're seeing on top of these, I guess, sub-footers, is the rebar caging for the part of the footers that will be exposed, and that we will be able to see. This is prior to them receiving any of the bolts for the supports or anything like that, prior to them even having a casing around them. If you look at the footer to the furthest left, pretty much below the tree that they were removing, you can see that there is a casing sitting there. That casing, it's two separate halves, get bolted together, concrete poured, and then once that concrete sets up and cures, they remove that, and they begin adding the bolt package to it and everything that needs to be on the footer in order for the footer to be able to receive the supports. So now we're going to continue looking. This is inside Stinger's former plot of land, and what you can see here is completed footers. These completed footers already have the bolt packages on them, and what you're going to see in later photos is going to be the bolts themselves are wrapped in aluminum foil, and that's just to protect the bolts. Obviously, you don't want anything corroding them, anything like that, anything that would weaken or compromise the bolts. You just don't want that to happen. This is looking down the construction site from former Rita's all the way back, and it's a massive change. This area has undergone a insane change, and I can't wait to see where this change continues to go, because this could be one of Dorney Park's most themed out rides in one of Dorney Park's most themed out areas. And it's an exciting idea of where the park could be heading in the future. Again, here's going to be more views of the construction site. This is, again, looking towards Steel Force. As you can see, Rita's is gone. Rita's is completely missing. But you see more of those footers, and they are all hopefully properly placed. And I say hopefully just as a joke. This is a major construction project. This is a measure 10 times, put it there in the proper position once type of thing. And more views of the site looking over a fence. You can see more of these footers. This is, of course, behind the bathroom, looking towards the back end of the construction site here, out towards the parking lot. Lots of footers have been poured. A lot of the footers that you're seeing in this view, which are going to be at the bottom of the screen there, those footers are going to be for the transfer track. Those are going to be for maintenance track. Those are going to be for, well, let me rephrase that, storage and maintenance track, and stuff like that. These are going to be some of the supports that really only take a load when they're shifting trains in and out of storage. And now we're looking out of the construction site towards the back end of the site. As you can see here, if you can make it out inside the boom of this cat in front of us, you can see where they've kind of excavated and begun working on some footers, some of the sub-footers out in this area, and they will extend further out. And I saw a video from Coaster Spot. He was out there droning, I forget when, I think the last week, I want to say. And you can see top down in this area, they are moving full speed ahead with getting these footers out in this area finished up. And again, based upon the information given to me yesterday, it makes sense with what they're trying to accomplish here. And this is going to be another view on the back end of the site overlooking the main entrance road. Here, circled, you're going to see more of the equipment, or not the equipment, the parts for footers. And finally, looking in the crack, you can see some of the work going on yet another sub-footer. You see the rebar there that has already been put in place. Now, they have not done the horizontal rebar around this to make the footer look like a true footer skeleton. But at this point, the time that it's been since this photo was taken, I would imagine that one's already done. Now, we're looking outside the construction site here, where they have completely encompassed the planter. Looking inside, this photo got mixed in somehow. This was still some Rita's views. And now we're going to move into some final construction updates here. Sorry, I'm a little wonky there. That threw me off that one of the photos was out of place. Anyway, so we're going to get some views here of what the site looks like currently. And these are the latest photos that I have. We're going to talk about some of the updates that I have coming, and then talk about the future, what's going on. So these are going to be overall construction views. In the about the middle of this photo, you can see one of the larger casings that's being used to form concrete. You can see, of course, Possessed rising up out of the into the sky there. Beautiful view across the site. You can see that they are keeping it clean, which is one of the guidelines that was required by South Whitehall Township. Here we're looking at where roughly the station transfer track and storage area is going to be. Again, these footers are really footers that are just going to receive a load when that track is in operation, but for the most part those footers are on the smaller scale because they are not going to be receiving massive amounts of forces. Another view over into that area where you can see some of those footers, and you can see the differences in scale between footers, the differences between, there are some round footers, there's square footers, rectangular footers on this site. There are a lot of different shapes of footers, and each one of those is determined by Bollinger and Mabillard and their engineering firm. That's determined based upon what their computer modeling can determine the forces will be applied to the footer. Some footer shapes and some footer designs are better at taking certain forces than other footer shapes. And this is a look at what I believe is going to be the base of the maintenance area in this ride. Looking back into the construction site, you can see where they are moving more earth, moving more dirt, and again, right about this time is when Coaster Spot overflew, and you could see just the amount of work that they're doing. I didn't want to steal Coaster Spot's video or even a clip from it. You can go find the video on his channel. I'm sure me and him are going to be flying drones competing with each other soon. Friendly competition, still competition. Hopefully our drones don't crash into each other. And more looks into the backstage area. And here we are. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is a completed footer. This footer has the aluminum foil. You can see the one behind it there has the aluminum foil wrapped around the bolts, around the nuts. This is, of course, again, to protect them. You don't want corrosion. You don't want anything happening to them. So that's just part of the final process there. Plus, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe when they're pouring the concrete, they do that because it's easier to get the concrete off the bolt. But don't quote me on that. Someone who's a construction expert, please tell me. And now we're looking at some of the massive excavations that are existing currently here. This is for part of the station building. At this point, it was after a rainstorm. Obviously, it flooded. A lot of this stuff is kind of, subterranean per se, below grade. So the water pools up on them. It's just nice to see that they're getting all of this type of stuff done when it's raining and not when it's snowing. It's a lot easier to move water out of a site than it is to move snow out of a site. So the fact that they are pretty much getting all the footers ready to go before it even starts to get really cold here is really nice, because then we don't run into a situation where maybe they had to dig through frozen ground or deal with snow in order to pour footers. Concrete needs a certain temperature to set up, and they're doing it right at the proper time, of course. Now we're looking at the former Stinger mechanical building, and one thing that jumped out to me here is the series of holes that has been drilled into the side of the building here. I'm assuming these are going to be for new conduit and electronics, and I would imagine for air compressor, airlines and stuff like that, that will run in and out of the building and run to the new ride. Of course, this being a Bollinger and Mabillard dive coaster, this is going to have a similar drop floor to that of Hydra. It's going to have the new pneumatic magnetic brakes that B&M uses. So those are operated with air. The standard friction brakes that B&M uses, those are operated with air. So there's a lot of airlines that will run out to this ride to help operate all of those safety systems. And here we're looking at one of the footers on the outside of the Zephyr area. I'm not 100% sure what element this is going to be the base for. Before the next video, I will figure that out and update that. And we're back at the beginning here. So, let's talk about what to expect coming up. And then we'll show you the exciting piece that showed up. And then we'll kind of close this thing out. So what to expect next, okay? Obviously, the park is going to be closed as of this Sunday. So, being that the park is going to be closed, it's going to be very hard to get you construction updates. What I'm going to do as a channel is I am going to reach out to Dorney Park and attempt to figure out how I can get at least one view behind the scenes, hopefully. If not, 2 or 3, maybe space them out through the construction period, so I can give you some behind the scenes as construction progresses. The other thing that we are going to be doing is we will be purchasing a drone. It's become abundantly clear to us that we need a drone, and that the only way for us to continue to bring updates on a somewhat frequent basis is going to be via a drone. Updates on this project, I wouldn't say will be weekly. I'm aiming for bi-weekly updates as soon as the drone arrives. And that will hopefully allow me to fly outside of Dorney Park's boundaries, but of course be able to view inside to the construction site and bring you updated views and updated information from the construction site. Enough yammering. Let's get to what we're all excited about. Track is on site. And this is one of the brake runs. Here you can see one of those pneumatic magnetic brakes that I was talking about. The pneumatic pistons are up underneath of there. When they engage, those pistons will lift the magnetic brakes into position, slow the train down to the desired speed. They'll then retract, drop down, and the coaster can proceed unimpeded. Also, just another view of that, and you can see in this one the standard friction brakes that we're used to seeing on a Bollinger and Mabillard roller coaster. And this is just some of the pieces of track. Since these photos were taken, the supports for the catwalks have been installed. The handrails for the catwalks have been installed. More track has arrived on scene. We have had supports arrive on scene. Pieces for the lift hill catwalk structure arrive on scene. There is steel showing up left and right. And what's really cool about that is it leads us kind of where the new information we have. So, of course, if you don't know, all of Bollinger and Mabillard's track supports and structure, they're manufactured at Claremont Steel out in Ohio. So the track is making the trek from Ohio out to the construction site. Per information we received yesterday, the trains are being manufactured in France. They are roughly 50% done, and then they will make their way to Dorney Park. The other information we were able to receive is that Dorney Park is hoping to begin installation of supports and tracks in the first week of November. And I believe, if I remember correct, it's going to start with the brake run and the station segments, and then progress forward from there. So we should see this go vertical within the next week, if not 2 weeks, which is really exciting. Going vertical with a roller coaster is a big thing, and it marks a major milestone, because what they're hoping to do is by March of next year be testing this roller coaster in anticipation of its opening. Now, the other information we were able to gain. I said that there are 2 rides that I am hearing are being rethemed. Of course, Cedar Creek Flyers. We were talking about that on this channel. We were speculating whether they were going to retheme that or not. It is being rethemed. It's confirmed. And based upon information I gained yesterday, Possessed is also being rethemed. So, we have 2 rides very close to this that are either being repainted, rethemed, or renamed. I don't know the depth of it, but this is the information I was able to gain, which is why I kind of questioned / speculated whether Monster was going to be getting a retheme. So that's going to do it for this month's update. At this point, the next update will come sometime in November. Again, we're waiting on the drone to get here, and I don't have an estimated ship date for it yet, but I am trying to get my hands on this drone so we can get in the air, so we can start filming this. So thank you everybody for supporting my channel. Thank you guys for supporting my videos. As always, like, share, and subscribe, please. It helps me massively. I don't make anything off these videos. I just do this for the love of roller coasters and for the love of the community. Anyway, y'all be kind to each other. Treat each other with love and respect, because again, we love something that most people look at and go, oh, that's a cool ride, and walk on. But we like the details.